Hi all, ciao VCM. So I have finally, and Kemi's up. Whee! Hi! I love you so much! So that was fast. It took all of what, 2 seconds for this little baby to wake up? Assuming it's gonna take me like 3 hours to film this video, because that's just life with a newborn. Right, Kemi? Anyways, I finally have sat down to film my birth story. So this is going to be a very positive, natural, home birth, unmedicated birth story as a first-time mom. So first of all, I have several other videos as to why I chose home birth, why home birth is safer than a hospital birth, why I chose to do a birth with midwives. All of that information's out there. I also have a video on things I did to prepare for my natural unmedicated home birth and other things. So I'll link them all somewhere up here and also down below in the video. So, okay, so my precious little baby came at 41 weeks and 1 day. So first of all, this was a Friday? No, it was Saturday. It was Saturday, July 17, that I went into labor. And what happened was, I'm in Baltimore, it's extremely hot. Kind of also wanted to get this baby out of me, so I was walking a lot every single day. But because it was so hot, and when you're pregnant, and if you've been pregnant, you know the heat is like, thought he peed, it's all good. The heat is like 3 times worse. So we had planned to go to Towson Mall and just like walk around the mall because it's air conditioned, right? So that was the plan for Saturday. And I think my husband Isaiah had gone out somewhere, and then he was picking me up. So he texted me when he was downstairs in like our little like drive up area for our apartment building. So I got ready, went downstairs. I opened the car. Oh, he was coming from the barber shop. I opened the car door because Kemi. Because he tells me afterwards that like he was trying to show me off his new hair, and I opened the door, sit in the car with one foot, my other foot is still out, and just start vomiting, just like throwing up everything, like right in front of my building for like good 5 minutes. I just wouldn't stop. Like anything that was inside of me left me. I knew that was my sign. I knew that I was gonna go into labor later that night, because this often happens that your body sort of like cleanses itself right before birth and before labor, and my body did that. So we went back up and chilled. We decided to watch a movie, and we were watching the Untouchables or something. I don't remember, a French film. And it was really good, and we're watching it, and we're on the couch, and all of a sudden my water broke. And the sensation was really like, for me, the sensation was like you're peeing yourself really slowly. So I felt like that warm water just like running down my pants, and but you're not in control, right? So we're on the couch, I start feeling it, I'm like, oh my god, I'm trying to like get off the couch, and I tell Isaiah my water just broke. That moment, like, we were both so excited. Obviously we've been waiting for this the entire 9 months. Like, today's the day finally, because once the water breaks, like, there's like a 48-hour, 24-hour window in which it's gonna happen, otherwise there's a risk of infection and so on. So anyways, the clock started ticking. Hi baby, yes, keep chatting. He's smiling, he's so happy. Oh, what are you gonna tell me? You did that? You broke the water? So we're super hyped. We like look at each other like, ah! Like, I can't express you like the smiles, the emotion we had on our faces. So the one thing I didn't know, or at least what was the case for me, is like once your water breaks, it's not like in the movies, just like boom, once and done. Once it broke, it like I continued leaking for like good 40-45 minutes. So I put on my adult diapers, put like a Chuck's pad on the floor, and was just sitting there as we like finished the movie. We didn't end up finishing the movie. I still don't know the ending of the movie. And then yeah, and then it was like around 7-8 o'clock, and I said, okay, let's just try to go to bed, because I know that, you know, labor is going to start, and once that happens, I'm going to be so thankful for any hour of sleep that I've gotten, because it's exhausting. And that was also my biggest fear, was long labor, because I know that for most hospital transfers from home births happen not because of some sort of emergency, but because the mama just gets tired. Like when you've been laboring for 48, 50, 72 hours, you're exhausted, you haven't slept, you're working so hard that you're just at some point like, I can't do it anymore. So yeah, so I wanted to get some sleep. So we went to bed, and I woke up around midnight. Yeah, I woke up around, or actually I woke up like 2 hours later. I don't know, it was like 9:10. I woke up, and my contractions had started. Isaiah was still sleeping. I didn't wake him up. And so I woke up, and I just started having this like sensation that was kind of like period cramps. It was still super mild in the beginning, and I really tried to not label it, not think about it as painful, but just like, as I had read in many of the books, to just be curious about it, like feel it, see where you feel it, how you feel it, you know, what happens if I breathe in, breathe out, what happens when I relax, like be curious about it, and try to like experience it and not run away from it and say, oh, that's painful, that's a contraction, that's bad, you know. So they were really mild, and I was still in bed and just had my eyes closed, and I was like, okay, so this is what it's like. This is what it's going to be like, you know, assuming that they're going to get a lot stronger. This is the sensation that I'm going to be feeling. And so I labored for maybe like 3-4 hours by myself without waking Isaiah up, and I was just literally just laying in bed. I never left the bed. And yeah, I was laying on my side, and just like letting, you know, going with every single contraction, going with every single wave. And for those of you who have not given birth and don't know what contractions feel like, I know I didn't, you know, prior to giving birth, and I really wanted to know. And honestly, the best way for me to explain it, it truly is that like wave motion sensation, how it's often described. And that is also how I knew that this is a contraction, because we don't have a lot of sensations like that in life that, you know, start and then they intensify. They hit the peak and then slowly release. And that happens every single time, like every single contraction. And to describe like the feeling a little bit more, I do think, I mean, yes, period cramps are a good, I hope it's not too loud. He's like enjoying himself. Period cramps are a good comparison. For me, I think I've had an IUD inserted, which is a really painful procedure, but it did remind me of the IUD insertion procedure pain, because that pain was the same as in like if you've ever had an IUD inserted, is that it intensifies as they're like pushing it in, and you feel the cramp up, and then slowly releases. So again, it's something like that. Honestly, indescribable. Like can't really describe what contractions feel like. But yeah, so I've been laboring by myself in bed for like 3 hours or so, and then the contractions were getting stronger and stronger. So at this point, I'm really starting to breathe through them. Like every single contraction, I have to breathe through. And so I was breathing, and I was breathing louder and louder. So at some point, I think it was maybe like 1 a.m. or something, I woke Isaiah up, not like intentionally, but just because I was breathing like louder, and he's right next to me, so he woke up. And then I said, hey, I'm in labor. I've been laboring for like 3 hours. And oh, totally forgot to mention, but once my water broke, we contacted my midwives. We called them, had contacted the midwives, so they knew that, you know, water had broken and that baby's gonna come at some point tonight or the next day. So yeah, so then I was just laboring. The funny thing was, literally, Isaiah and I had prepared so hard. He had read all the birth partner books. We had practiced the Bradley method. You know, we had gone through like what this could be like. He was ready to coach me. He knew exactly what to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do, and so on. But I did not want any of it. And I knew that, like in my heart, I already knew that before I went into labor, that most likely, knowing me as a person, I'm gonna want to be alone and nobody around, no one helping me, just like be there so that I know that if I need something, I can call your name and you'll help me, but don't be hands on, hands off. Like that's just me, and that definitely was the case for me. So typically every night I sleep with a eye mask and earplugs in, like that's just how I sleep. And I kept the eye mask on the entire time I was in labor. Like I took it off maybe like 20-30 minutes before Kemi was born. Like I had it on the entire time because I wanted darkness, I wanted silence, I wanted privacy. And that's literally what all the books on natural childbirth say, that those are like the primary needs of any birthing person, which is also not what you get in a hospital. I honestly, like after going through this experience, I don't know how I would have done it in a hospital. The tiniest light, the tiniest sound bothered me. Everything had to be dark and quiet, and I wanted to be alone and feel no one else's energy, no disruptions, no interruptions, and so on. So basically, yeah, for the next couple hours, the contractions were intensifying, and I was really working through them. And this is the thing, I mean, it's work. It's hard work. I don't want to describe it as pain, like the contractions, and it's something that's really hard to explain because they are very intense. And it is very hard work. And previously I compared it to the IUD insertion, which is painful. But it's different because this is something that's coming from within you with the purpose of helping you. And if you let it, if you like relax it, and my mantra the entire time was relax, trust, allow. Relax, trust, allow. That's just what I kept saying forever. And when I say hard work, I mean like contractions are, you know, back to back, one after another for like what, 10-12 hours or something, and every single time you have to fully relax, trust, and allow. That means you cannot slip up, or like for me, you know, at least that was the case. I knew that if I slip up once, if I give in to a bad thought or fear, or if I, you know, like start to hyperventilate or just mess up my breathing, like something disrupts my rhythm, I could so easily see how you could slip into that, you know, like fear and pain cycle, and, you know, that's it. Like, there's no turning back after that point. So maintaining that trust, allow, relax, and maintaining that stability and sense of safety and relaxation, and, you know, maintaining a relaxed body and mind, which is really hard to do. That's hard work through something that's so intense, like so intense that's happening. So yeah, so that's what I was doing. I was working really hard. Isaiah tried to offer things or say things, and I instantly just like pushed him away, waved my hands like away. And whenever he would say something, I just went shh, shh, shh. I didn't want to hear any noise, anything. So then a couple other things that happened that night is I kept throwing up. So any sip of water he would offer me, or I had a smoothie, anything, I would just throw up. And that was honestly really hard. It's not something I had prepared for or had imagined that I would be throwing up that much during labor. But yeah, I threw up everything. And then I remember at some point the contractions were really strong, so I'm still at this point just laying in bed, and I'm switching sides, like left side, right side, and yes, I'm switching in between contractions, and I had my body pillow propped between my legs. So that's something that I wish I had. It's called a peanut ball. That they use sometimes in birth, like you put it in between your legs. That really would have, I mean, I had pillows, so it's the same effect, but yeah, you just want something, or I wanted something in between my legs to like keep them wide open as I was alternating sides. So that's all I was doing with my mask on. So I must have looked really chill. I think I remember at some point I like peeked through, and Isaiah was on his iPad like watching the game or something, because this poor man was feeling so useless, like anything, like he couldn't do anything. I didn't want anything, nothing, until it was time to set up the pool. Then he could do that, but that was about it. So yeah, and then at one point when the contractions were extremely strong, I asked Isaiah to run me a bath because I wanted to get in water, but it wasn't really time to make the pool yet. You want to make the pool as late as possible because you can't adjust the temperature in it. So if we had made it early, the water would have gotten cold, and then you can't like release the water and remake it again. So anyway, so he made the bath, and I remember getting in the water, and oh my god, that was so good. Like instantly when I got into the water, like it's like for the first couple of minutes, like 3-4 minutes, like no feelings at all. It's like just relaxation. It was amazing. And then I stayed there for maybe like 10-15 minutes, but I realized that, as I had read in one of those books, you know, you want to give in to contractions. You don't want to run away from them. So even though it seems like, oh, I want to go wherever my contractions are easiest, the opposite is true. You want to go and do whatever makes your contractions stronger, because they're literally, contractions are like opening your cervix, like they're opening the muscles there. So you want them to be hard. You want them to work, to be strong, to contractions, and you know, like contractions one after another, faster and faster together, is what's getting the job done, you know. So that's actually what you want. So when I was in the tub for those 10-15 minutes, I realized, I was like, oh no, I'm just gonna slow down my own labor, like, and just exhaust myself more. So I should go back to bed where they were stronger and where they were, you know, getting faster together. So I went back to bed, continued laboring. So a couple of things that I hadn't expected. First of all, I definitely assumed that I would be moving around a lot more during labor. You know, I had my birthing ball, I had relaxed and watched all these videos of like different positions to take during labor. None of that. Like, I couldn't see myself moving. I just wanted to be one side, other side. And even when I had to throw up or like poop or pee during labor, that was such a struggle because I had to move. And the other thing, I definitely thought that, you know, like, early labor, because of the nature of my birth and labor, I essentially did not have early labor. Like, once my labor started, my contractions were just like on top of one another from the get-go. Whereas like typically, or what I had read, you know, for like a textbook labor, you start with early labor where your contractions are like, you know, half hour apart. You're still able to make your labor aid, which is like the drink you're going to be drinking, or I don't know, set up or whatever. I did not have that. It moved so fast, which on the one hand was good because that made my entire labor shorter. But on the other hand, I had no time to adjust or adapt to get used to the contractions, basically. Like, once they started, I just had to get to work. Like, I was looking forward to early labor because I wanted to see, like, oh, this is what the sensation's like, you know, this is how I'm gonna work through it. Practice, basically, like a practice round. Did not have that. Once it started, it got going real fast. And I think that's the other thing, like, watch as many birth stories as you can, because you don't know what's gonna be the case for you and what won't, you know. I had prepared for back labor. Like, Isaiah knew how to do all the massages and stuff. I did not have any back labor, you know. Yeah, you just don't know, basically, how it's gonna be for you. So be ready for everything. Like, be ready for everything. So anyways, I got back in bed and I continued laboring. And then the sun came up already. That's another thing, like, you're so out of it, you're in a completely different realm. I had no idea if an hour had passed, 3 days had passed. Like, yeah, the stronger the contractions got, the less aware I was of what was going on around me. Like, I'm sure a bunch of times as they asked me a question or something and I just wouldn't respond. Like, it didn't enter my brain. Like, I did not process or understand anything that's going on the outside. I was in the spiritual world. I was somewhere else. And I was working hard. So yeah, then the sun came up, and that's another reason why I kept the eye mask on, because our blinds are trash, so the room was still bright from the sun, and I did not want any light, so I kept my eye mask on. And then I remember, you know, I told Isaiah to set up the pool. He had set up the pool, and then I remember he was in, the whole time he was in touch with the midwives, so he was texting with them, calling them. I did not know what was going on in terms of that. And yeah, at some point also during the middle of the night, because he was in contact with midwives, he had to track the contractions. So he had the app, and he was like, you know, asking me to say when the contraction begins and when it ends. And just to tell you, like, guys, you're like, literally, you're not able to talk during labor. Like, I could not do it at all. So even that tracking contractions thing, I let him do it a couple of times, and then I was like, like, I can't do it. And even then, I would just like show with my hand, like, I would go like this when it goes up, and then I would go like this when, like, you know, just when it goes down. I wouldn't speak. I couldn't say anything. So he had to like understand from my gestures what was going on. Yeah, so basically he had tracked the contractions at some point during the night, but after that, many times I remember he offered, he was like, oh, we should track it, and I was just like, shh or wasn't responding, you know, I did not want to do it. I didn't find it necessary. I just felt like I knew exactly what was happening in my body and when it was going to happen. So at this point, it's the next morning, Sunday, July 18, and it's the next morning, maybe like 9-10 a.m. and I told Isaiah, no, it was at that point like already 11-12, and I told Isaiah, I was like, I'm gonna push soon, so you should probably call the midwives. And that was my plan all along. Like, I wanted to call the midwives as late as possible because I wanted to labor by myself with Isaiah, obviously, and like, he was very needed. You know, every time I would just scream out bowl when I needed to throw up, and he would pass the bowl and I would throw up. And you know, like, when I said water, he would pass the water, I would take a sip, and then he would, you know, back away. So I didn't need another person. Like, I definitely needed him. I'm not saying alone, like by myself. I wouldn't have wanted to do this by myself, but I wanted to do it without anyone else, you know. Only the people who are involved in making the baby, basically. So at that point, I told him, yeah, I'm gonna push soon. So like, I'm about to push, basically. So call the midwives. So he called the midwives, and the midwife came here, first Bela, afterwards Nikki. So Bela got here, and she was like, hey, I was in bed, and she's like, hey, do you want me to examine you to see like how dilated you are? And this is something that I really liked about my midwives in particular. They had told me, you know, when I first like chose their service, basically, that they don't believe in, you know, cervical exams unless I ask for it, they won't do it, because they don't believe in necessarily pushing fingers inside a birthing person's vagina, because that's what it essentially is. And so many, if you watch so many birth videos, home or hospital, where they do cervical exams, the women always talk about, like my mom to this day, when she talks about labor, just remembers how much she hated cervical exams. And that's not even part of labor. Like, they chose to make this part of labor. It didn't have to be there. Like, you didn't have to go through that pain and suffering. So, but yeah, so I always knew I wasn't gonna have those exams, but I did want to know when she got here, like, I knew that I was fully dilated and ready to push, but I also wanted that confirmation. So I let her do that one examination, and to be honest, like, it was not painful. Like, I barely remember it. I think because I was fully dilated at that point, like, I just didn't feel anything down there. So she was like, oh, yep, you're like 9.5, or like almost 10 centimeters fully dilated. She's like, you can definitely get in the pool, which was amazing. I got in the pool, the water, oh my God. Water birth all the way. Like, water helps so much. It truly, truly does. Kimmy, what's up? So first I got in the water, and then the pushing contractions came. And y'all, I was not ready for those. Like, that is the one thing when I keep telling people, when I keep retelling my birth story, and I keep talking about like what I was prepared for and what I wasn't, I feel like I was extremely prepared for the contractions. Like, the entire night when I was in bed, rolling side to side, working hard through every single contraction, doing my breathing, you know, like trusting, relaxing, allowing, all of that stuff. I would not have been able to do that if I hadn't spent 9 months preparing mentally, basically. It's all a mind game, truly. And I was so ready for it, and that's why I handled it so well, honestly. But the pushing contractions, I just did not realize how strong they're gonna be. It's literally like, why is there even this conversation about how will I know when to push? And then people in movies are like, push, push, push. I mean, yes, if you have an epidural, then you don't feel that natural sensation, so you do need someone telling that. But for natural unmedicated births, your body is pushing, girl, and you feel it. It is the strongest thing my body has ever done, and it comes from inside of you. And it's like, I can't explain it. It's just like your entire body all of a sudden is like pushing with the strength, with such severe strength, where it feels like I'm about to push out all of my organs by accident, just because of how strong my body is pushing. And so the pushing contractions came, and those were hard. Like, those were hard. Again, they were not painful. They were just hard because I was confused and a little bit afraid that something so strong was happening. Like, what was going on. I've seen all these videos of like calm births where during the pushing stage, like women are breathing the baby out, and I was like, is this normal? Like, is this how it should be? Like, it was really, 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 really hard. And I remember like the first few pushing contractions, maybe like 3 to 5 first contractions, I like roared and sort of like screamed, well, not screamed, but like rawr, like let out like a lioness roar basically, because the entire time before that I've been quiet. I haven't said a word for like 12 hours. And my midwife said, she was like, you can do that if that helps you, but just make sure, maybe try, she was like, just try like a breathing, like a strong breathing out instead, so that you don't exhaust yourself. And to me that worked. Like, to me, when I switched to that, I was like, good, because if I had continued like roaring and screaming with such passion as I did the first few, I would have super overextended myself and exhausted myself. But this is, again, to each their own. Like, this literally depends person to person. So I give it like, 10-15 minutes maybe of the, less probably, honestly, like 5 to 10 minutes of pushing contractions, and I started panicking. Like, that was the stage where I was like, why isn't the baby coming out? Like, this has been, like, my body cannot be doing this for much longer. Like, it's literally contracting itself, like, to such a degree that like this cannot go on for much longer. And I remember at that point I was like starting to doubt myself, and I knew that like well, I was afraid. I was like, what if the baby's too big, all of that stuff. And then yeah, and I think that part of it was because I had read so many birth stories where I just always felt like people described it as, oh, and in 2 pushes he came, or it only took 1 push and the baby came. And I thought that meant that like the pushing stage lasted that 1 push, but that's not the case. Pushing stage can last several hours. And for me, it only lasted about like half hour, maybe 20 minutes, and it felt like forever. The entire night of contractions prior to that, literally the like 12 hours before that, when I was going through intense hard contractions, that felt like an hour, like that, now looking back at it, like that felt like it just passed. But the pushing stage, oh my gosh, I was really, really struggling. That was hard, just because mentally I was not prepared for it, which is why, again, like natural unmedicated birth is something that requires so much preparation. Like, you cannot, not that you cannot, but you definitely should prepare, because the only reason I found that part difficult is because I wasn't prepared for it adequately. So I started feeling like the head was pressing down really, really hard. I could feel it pressing down, but it wasn't pushing through. So that's why I started thinking, oh my God, it's too big. It's not going to fit. They're going to need to take me to the hospital and cut me open because it's just not going to fit. It's not going to fit. It's too big. It's too big. And so, yeah. And then I started feeling the ring of fire, which I had heard described many times, where, like when it's basically opening. I'm holding the pacifier in with the other hand, and so it like creates this ring of fire basically around, like in your vagina, and it like hurts and it's burning sensation. That's how people had described it. So I was a little bit afraid of that as well. Ring of fire felt like nothing to me, honestly. Like, I felt it and I was like, this. And I think, again, because in my mind prior to giving birth, I had just I've been conditioned to view birth as something so traumatic and so painful that I was expecting to feel basically as if someone would be like stabbing me open, like that is what I thought I was prepared for that type of pain. So every time it wasn't living up to that, I was like, oh, this little sensation, okay. So I felt the ring of fire. That was nothing. I could feel myself, like I know at which moment, because I had a tiny tear at the top and a tiny tear at the bottom, and I know when that happened, because I could literally, like, I was like, oh, it didn't hurt, but I knew, I was like, oh, this must be the time, like, it's like stretching out too much. And yeah, and then, so what happened was, the water in the pool had gotten a little cooler, and so Isaiah went to the kitchen to boil some more water, and then the water had boiled, and he was about to bring it back, and so I was alone with the 2 midwives, they were just kind of like sitting off, and I was in the pool. They were like in the bed area. I was in the pool on all 4s, basically, pushing on all 4s or squatting or on all 4s. That's the 2 positions I was alternating in, and that's how I gave birth, basically. And then I remember like putting my hand down there, and I could feel something. And like I remember I could feel something already earlier, but I wasn't sure if that's the baby. Now I know, because Kemi was born with a full head of hair. So when I touched it, I just felt hair, and I was like, you know, I don't know, that's probably not the baby. And so yeah, and then while Isaiah was gone, I put my hand down again, and I was like, no, that is, like, I can feel, like, you know, like this part of the head, I can feel it. So I told the midwives, I was like, oh, I think I can feel the head. And so they started like yelling to the kitchen, like, Isaiah, come, like, she says she can feel the head. And Isaiah barely made it in time, because with the next contraction, with one push, I pushed out the entire baby, head and body. That's how you came, Kemi, just like head and body, one push, pushed you out in the pool, and your dada caught you, and put on my chest, and that is how you were born. Beautiful story, huh? So yeah, that's literally what happened. I pushed him out in one push. Then Isaiah caught him, and that was always the plan, and put him on my chest, and he screamed, you know, like the healthy scream once you're born. And I just remember like crying. It was such an intense and beautiful moment. It's like you see your baby. Oh my God. See your baby, and you're holding him finally, like after 9 months, and he's here. It's just nothing I can say right now can like come close to describing that feeling. It's just unreal. And I had him on my chest, and I just remember looking down and just saying, I love you, I love you, I love you so much, I love you so much. Okay. Whew. Then, since we didn't know the sex of the baby, I remember Nikki, the other midwife. Oh, hi, baby. Nikki going, oh, what is it? And then I remember hearing, like, in the distance, Bela saying, it's a boy. And then I kind of, like, mindlessly repeated it and just said, it's a boy, even though I'd already been holding the baby for, like, 10 minutes. But I had completely forgotten about the sex or finding out the sex, and that is, hi, cutie. Something that actually was quite shocking too, because obviously you're curious, you know. I feel like the last month when leading up to birth, like we kept thinking, oh, we're gonna find out soon, you know, we're gonna find out if we have a boy or a girl. But then the moment the baby's born, you have a healthy baby with 10 toes and 10 fingers, and nothing else matters. Like nothing else matters. It just felt like irrelevant information. I could have found out, you know, a month later whether it's a boy or a girl, and I would not care. So yeah, and then after that we waited. I stayed in the pool. Oh, I stayed in the pool with him on me for a good maybe 20 minutes. After he stopped screaming, he immediately started sucking on my nipple. So we already developed that connection. And Isaiah was right there too. Hey, do you remember that? Placenta, I hadn't birthed my placenta yet. So after a while, I mean, after like we waited, talk about delayed cord clamping, we waited for like half an hour when it was completely white and dead, and all the blood had gone to Kemi already, and that's when Isaiah cut the cord. And at that point I said, okay, like, when is this placenta gonna come out? Like, I'm kind of waiting. The midwife said, oh, you mean you can try to push for the placenta? And that's when I said, okay, I gave Kemi to Isaiah, and he like went to sit with him and do skin to skin. And I tried to like gently push a couple of times in the pool, but the placenta was not coming out. Like, it took another hour, I think, for me to get the placenta out. So I was in the pool, it wasn't working, and then Nikki suggested that I go sit on the toilet, because that could kind of help push it out. And so I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I'm finally getting out of the pool, and literally as I step out the pool, the placenta just like plop, plops out right there on the floor. And that was truly, like, my midwives were telling me, they're like, you want to get the placenta out because you're gonna feel amazing after. And that's so true. Like, pushing the baby out was one thing, and then getting the placenta out is like full relief. Like, that's it. What was interesting and also maybe unexpected, so the placenta like kind of like fell out, right? So my midwife Nikki, she was gonna collect the placenta because she got my placenta encapsulated. So she's there, and she kind of had to like pull at it. It's hard to explain. So it had fallen out, but it's still like kind of attached with something. This is like gross explanations, but if you've given birth, you may know what I'm talking about. So she had to like pull and separate it fully for like everything to come out. So again, just things that I didn't know about birth before. And then yeah, so we got all the, bless you, Kemi. Bless you. He always does more than one. So it got the placenta out, and then I went to lay on the bed with my baby, with Isaiah, and we just laid there while the midwives did the cleanup, and we were just so happy, in love with our new little baby. And yeah, I remember just laying there thinking about the process and how, wow, I did that. Like, I fucking did that. And that feeling, I mean, they say like after a natural unmedicated birth, like the happiness hormones that run through you are unreal, like unreal. Just like chemically, that's I mean, I can't explain it all, but in all the books that I've read, it talks about, you know, like so much of these hormones are released during birth, and then all of these other hormones are released immediately after, that are just like happiness. Like I was flying. I was so happy. I just like felt like I can do anything, like on drugs basically. So yeah, so that is the birth story of how Cameron Akemi Bell, or our little Kemi, was born. And it was beautiful. It was absolutely everything that I could have wanted. I could not have imagined it better. Everything was perfect. I am so happy I did all of the prep that I did, even though I ended up using, you know, about 10% of everything that I read and learned. That's the point of it, because you don't know what you'll need. Yeah, this video is already extremely long. I would be more than happy to also do another video on, sorry, techniques that I found especially helpful, and maybe ones that I didn't. You know, as I said, I already have that one video about things that I did to prepare for a natural birth, but now I have a different perspective, and now I'm actually able to talk about like what was useful, what wasn't useful. So I'm happy to do that, or any other videos, you know, postpartum is a video, because that was a bitch, and raising a little newborn and what that's been like. But yeah, my birth was incredible. I thank the universe every day. Still, 2 months later, it's been now 2 months and 10 days, that it went so smoothly, that everything was amazing, and I'm so blessed and so lucky. And again, if you have given birth, no matter where and how, I hope that it was a happy and empowering experience, because I feel so empowered after having done that. And you know, now I'm thinking about doing a free birth for my potential next baby, if that ever happens. But yeah, that's it, Kemi.